Hello, people. We're back, and we're not two tired teachers anymore.
Yeah, we had to nix that. We just added an extra, would that be an adjective to our title? So I'm Vinay, this is Rumi, and we have a guest with us today for two very tired teachers. And I love this person. We have worked together, and now we're going to be able to work together again. But I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. So, Melinda, go for it.
I am Melinda Hahn. I have been a teacher, I think 18 years now. I know that I can retire in less than 10. So I'm looking forward to those days.
The moments when I literally don't like my favorite people, when they say that how many years they have, and I'm in my head, I'm like, oh my God, they're way in front of me.
I'm looking forward to those days. I have taught a myriad of stuff. I have taught agriculture. I have an ag degree actually. And then I have my master's in psychology. I have taught ag and 4th and 5th grade science. Oh, and 6th and 8th grade science. I've taught 8th grade reading, and I've taught language arts in sprinkles along the way of my career. So that's who I am.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. So as you can see on the screen, exactly. Exactly. So on the screen, there is a plethora of experience, a plethora of subjects that can be discussed. But we brought Melinda in because when I worked with her, I guess it's been about 5 years now, almost 5 years.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, almost. So she was the one in our building that did a 100%, as what we were calling it then, flipped classroom. And I was intrigued by what she was doing. And I came to her room often just to be nosy to see what she was doing. So our conversation today, especially as we think about what going into the fall may look like because of our timeout, this may be something that we're going to all have to jump on the bandwagon with. So I brought her in because I feel like Rumi is a techie person. She's more techie than me. I am the techie person that just show me which buttons to push and let's move it on. But I'm not, losing my mind over it. Rumi is she's a few levels over me, but I consider Melinda to be like up there, especially how she did her classroom that year. So I want her to first give kind of an overview of how you did your flipped classroom that year.
We called it a flipped classroom because in the classroom is actually where we did the work. So in my classroom, I taught science that year. And in my classroom, we did all of the labs. We did small group. We did, and their homework booklets we did in class. And it was a whole lot of rotating and small group work. However, what they did at home for homework was videos. So I would tape a video of what I wanted them to learn. And in my video, I would have the anchor chart and everything that I wanted them to have in the video. So they would go home in the evening and watch the video for after the lesson was taught. And so they were actually getting all of the note taking and the information from me from a video. And then, so like for science, we have an engage part and an explore part. So the explore and the engage and some of the elaborate actually would happen in my classroom. And then after they had experience with those things, they would then in the evening would be their video. Now, I worked in a low socioeconomic classroom. So a lot of them did not have access to it wasn't as easy back then. Like today we have Google Drive where they can do it on their phone, but that was not an option when I did the flipped classroom. So I put it on a website, and if they weren't able to do the work at home that evening, then some of them came in early, some of them did it at lunch, some of them did it at recess, or if they didn't want to do it on their time, then they had to do it on my time, and they lost out on the small group stuff, like the fun stuff that we had in our classroom. So when they figured that out, the majority of them would do it that evening, like, so that they were ready to come in and start the next piece of our lesson, or of that unit. So,
And so in watching Melinda actually do this in real life, for somebody like me who had never seen that before, walking in the room, I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? Because every section of the room had something going on. She literally had 2 Promethean boards set up, and each one had their own thing going on. And she would be down on the floor at a table doing this with one group, and this table's over here doing, and I mean, for a novice person that didn't understand how education works, they would just have walked in and said, this is totally out of control. It is mass chaos. There's no way that anybody could be learning. But what I always noticed was everybody was always engaged. And I think that was, to me, like the most important thing. So if I were going to have somebody go see an engaged class, I would definitely lead them that way, because the students were always engaged. Now, this is where I give props to Rumi also, because this is exactly how she teaches most of her lessons as well, with the videoing of the lesson and the children being able to, access it at home. And like Melinda was saying, we didn't have Google Classroom back then, but she found a way. So I guess my question to you would be, having gone through that experience and now being in timeout and what we've had to do for the last 9 weeks, how do you see yourself using that experience going forward?
well, so this timeout was not a huge problem for me,
I'm sure.
because because I'd already done it, because I already did it. Actually, who I ended up being during this time was a guide for the people that I work with. Because like I said, I'd already done it. I already knew how to make videos. The cool thing was I learned about virtual backgrounds, so that was really cool.
Emojis
And Bitmojis.
for the Google Classroom.
Yes.
See, they're all excited and geeked out, and I'm just, yeah, that, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. So I learned how to make my little, 12 by 10 office into a virtual classroom. I was able to, I learned how to use my virtual background as a model.
Oh.
So yeah, so one of our units was reviewing on geology. So it was reviewing landforms. So I made my background a U-shaped valley, and I was able to use the background in my screen to point out the erosion and the deposition and the weathering on the sides. And so it was pretty neat. So I feel like all it did was enhance my abilities. So I will probably continue just doing what I've done. And our district is introducing Schoology this year. So I've been playing on it, trying to understand it so that it's easier for me to use. So I will probably just continue to use it, and just make my videos more engaging, I guess you could say, or making slide presentations more interactive, so that they could use those. So I could make a unit slide, and then make like for geology, for example, I could have that glacier on there and then make this piece of it describe deposition and, or not deposition, erosion, and this piece describe deposition, and the middle piece, you know, put different, make a different piece of the picture more information.
That's
So,
interesting, and you're harping right up her alley, up Rumi's alley. You're right
Oh, I'm
there.
enjoying it so much.
I know you are. She's right there with you already. She has already had some experience coming from the district that she came from with Schoology.
Yes.
So based upon the experience that you already had and what Melinda has just said that she wants to try to do you feel like it's going to be like an easy thing to do?
Well, okay, first of all, before we even go there, because we have to, not that that many people watch us, but we have to. There's no endorsements for these programs. We're not, no, we're too small for that. But we have to say it, so it is. Okay, so
I guess I could have said program we're starting to use.
I mean, my experience with Schoology was, it was not, when we started, it was not user friendly. For you to add things on, you had to click and flip, and so the new platform, because they redid a lot of things, pretty much you can use everything from Google now, integrate it immediately in. You can even integrate your Google Classroom perfectly well. The only thing that it's still kind of in the working is the Google Forms, which for math and science teacher, that it's kind of a little tragedy. Okay, straightforward. Now, but I don't think Schoology will be appropriate for the lower primary grades. It's too complicated. Even sometimes the fourth and fifth graders had problems to manage that.
So you mean the students getting on it? You're talking about from their perspective?
From from their perspective. As a teacher, you will pretty much do it just the same way that you organize. The first glance is just Google Classroom or just Canvas. It's probably kind of the same thing. It's just how you add things on it, that it's more clicking and more flipping around, that it's in Google Classroom or it's in Canvas. Canvas, for example, it's a lot easier on my point of view, But for the little ones, it's absolutely not user friendly. They should look at something more simple to use for the little ones, like Seesaw. You know, that's the one that the little ones can use. But yes, she will continue to do exactly the same thing. I can bet you that in some point she will figure out that if she adds the hyper docs and the hyperlinks, it's going to be even easier. But yeah.
I'll show you how to do that, Vinay.
Okay, thanks. I'm hoping we're next door to each other, so I can just say,
hey, Melinda.
There you go.
I have been trying, Melinda, seriously ask her that. I just found out how to. Nope. But Lisa just.
She nope. Calls me.
Oh,
excited. Yeah, great. Right. I've already told Melinda I need you to be an expert. So there you go. So I guess my follow-up question would be, if you had to give us some cons of the whole flipped classroom situation, other than everyone not having, which we learned this over this timeout period, that the assumption that everybody is connected was a stupid assumption, or a bad assumption. Sorry, not stupid, bad, however you want to look at it. It was not a good one. The assumption that everybody was connected was not a good one. Other than that, what would you say are some cons to doing it?
I know a big one for me was preparation time, because you're making so many different activities and they have to be differentiated. Because that's one of the things I really liked about the flipped classroom, was that I could differentiate almost everything, but it was time consuming. So the time consumption it took, and then the keeping up with what the students actually finished. Like, I needed to know that they had the notes for the plant, parts of the plant. And if they didn't have the notes for the parts of the plant, then, you know, they were kind of stuck in the water if they didn't remember the activities. So the follow up on making sure that they had their information. Some other cons. Oh, planning was another, because my setup was so totally different than everybody else's.
Right.
Planning was a little more difficult because I did mine so differently.
Right. So those are pretty much your normal cons and with anything.
Right.
The whole preparation thing, keeping up with the assignments, all those are pretty much standard across the.
Right.
But I guess it would be like to the 10th power because of how individualized or differentiated, whichever word you like to use, that it is. So I guess my next question would be, what would you do differently going forward? But before we go to that question, in between because that's been 5 years. So how have you changed it, stopped it, flipped, done it differently between when I saw you doing it and now?
Well, I've taught 2 different subjects since then, so that's kind of changed it. That very next year, I started teaching math. So that was, I turned my math kind of into a flipped classroom, but not authentically. You know, when I made video, I continued to make videos so that kids could still view them when they needed the extra help, like if they needed to see another step done or if they needed to see how I did something. So I still continue the videos. I still teach in small group.
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I don't differentiate as much as I should anymore. I mean, I do differentiate, but I'm not as proactive, I guess you could say. I differentiate on the fly instead of making sure that it's authentic.
Right.
So that's probably the only differences. And then this last year was my first year back in science, so, and it was at a new school, so I had to learn their ways of things.
Ooh, so, don't get me started on that one. Don't get her started. Don't get her started on that. Yes, please do.
And they had to know me. They had to know that what I was doing was going to work. And now I kind of don't have that because I don't have the STAR test to back me up.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's all of us at this point.
So next year is still going to be like another first year because, I mean, I have a few tests, like the matter test. I proved my worth in the matter test, and but some of the other, I'm still going to I'm like starting at square one again next year.
Right.
So
Rumi, I know a lot of what you did this year, you did via video and that kind of thing. Did you see the same kind of cons that Melinda just talked about? Did you have some of those same issues?
Oh yeah, the first year it's extremely difficult because of the amount of time that you put in. It doesn't matter. I kind of learned from on the going because I was in the same situation. It's time consuming to the point of not sleeping and not eating. Well, I did eat obviously, but then you start looking at the extensions that can help you do all of these things, and you start looking groups on Facebook and Instagram that are talking about, because turns out there is a lot of extensions and programs that cuts your work. So for me, the differentiation, for example, if it wasn't a paperwork, I just had to use Kami, and I can manipulate anything in that paper the way that I wanted to. And I just had one to present and the backup. So you start learning about using all of this. It gets easier when you have built up like a library behind you, you know?
Mhm.
So you can just have to switch one or two or three videos, or suddenly you decide that the best way to be more interesting is to start doing videos in PowerPoint, you know,
Right.
and then you switch those things, but it's not that. The first year, it's definitely, it works better if you have a team around and everybody's on board. And then you kind of go that, yeah, I know. But I did have that in
You were
not
very lucky.
it was the second year.
Yeah.
I had that. So it was easier, but definitely the amount of work until you build knowledge of extensions, that's the big thing. And the programs that helped you forward. I learned, for example, at that time we had GradeCam. Okay, so I didn't have to look anything on grades. They will do it there, and they have a Scantron. They literally went to the computer and scanned the Scantron, and I was done with grading. But you learn that on the go, and
Right.
that makes it easy. But yes, probably just like her. And if you have to switch between subjects, it's a very difficult because you start from zero again and again and again.
Yeah.
The thing
So-
with me was that once they saw the results and how it was like, you stay here, you're not moving, we're not moving you anymore. So that was it.
Yeah.
That made it easier.
So when we're talking about these videos, because I got that experience during this time out period, having to make the videos for my classes. And this is to both of you. About on average, how long were your videos? And is there a pro or a con for the amount of minutes that you spent on the videos?
I spent longer editing the video than making the video. Um,
You learned that too.
I try not to go over 10 minutes. Because I know the attention span, I know my attention span with a video. So I could only imagine a 8, 9, 10-year-old's attention span on a video. So I really try hard not to go over 10 minutes. And if I have to go over 10 minutes, then I'm gonna break that information up into smaller chunks, just like I would in a classroom.
Yeah.
It's probably the same for me, no more than 10, 12 minutes. And if it's a video that I'm making with images and things, not just me explaining things, you know. But this was my problem. If I have to do the guided practice, because I did that, a guided practice where they can sit and watch the video with me doing it and they're doing it to the side.
Mm-hmm.
That one will take more time because it's me, because I have to explain even the comma, you know. But as a guided practice or as an intervention for the group, those videos will be longer.
Okay, got it. So how did your parents respond? That's either of you. How did your parents respond to this?
I had several parents that liked it. And they liked it because they got the information too. Like, because, you know, in this day and age, we're higher than what their parents were at this same age. So a lot of my parents appreciated it. The majority of my parents appreciated it, but of course you had those couple of parents who they have to do what?
Let's not.
You not teaching.
After my situation today, let's not.
You know, that was the ones that, just like Melinda, the parents jump on it because the same reason, they actually could see what we're doing at school and how it's done. So they knew what it said, and they usually try to help their kids. But I was in the same situation, low Title I school.
Yeah.
The usual ones that had complained was this one. So you're not teaching them. Yeah, still teaching them, but it's on video. And that was it. That was the complaint. But majority on board once they start watching the videos and what the kids are doing with the videos, they were good to go.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit because I think we've kind of discussed this on all the videos that we've done since we've been in timeout. What do you think? I know you've seen the CDC stuff, and I know you've seen, for us in Texas, the TEA stuff as to what they're saying school might look like when we go back in the fall, if we make it back in the fall. What do you feel like has to happen so that we can successfully do those things that those impossible dreams that they have for us to do when we go back in the fall? How do you think school is going to look? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Do you think it's even realistic for the things that they put out there? Do you even think it's realistic?
You want to do another video for 50 minutes and we just discuss this part, because there is a lot to say on that one. I'm just saying.
To be completely honest, I haven't read them. I've just heard what people have said.
Oh my Lord.
And what I have heard, I don't see how it's realistic when you have a classroom of 25. I mean, at 5th grade, they quit. There is no cap anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, you know, I taught a 5th grade class that had 32 people in it.
Exactly.
And there's no way that, in the room I'm in this year, if you put kids 6 feet apart, I could fit maybe 8
Yeah. Yeah.
in my classroom.
And really,
it's gonna be interesting.
Unrealistic. Unrealistic.
Yeah.
Right.
All of it's unrealistic because I think at the end of the day, had they been listening to teachers years and years and years ago.
I'm sorry.
Hey,
Say hi.
look at that. How are you? Chilling. I love that picture from yesterday. I'm doing that tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I'm going to be exactly like that picture.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This is the reality of our life right now during timeout. So it's all good. But as I was saying, I think had they listened to teachers 5, 10, 20 years ago about, you know, where education is going, had they asked us then, we wouldn't be at this point now, because we would already be doing most of those things. We wouldn't have 25 to 50,000 kids in one class. It wouldn't be that way.
Right.
Open concept would never still be a thing.
Never have existed.
Right, it would never have existed, or it would still not be a thing. You know,
Right.
You would have to be coming back after the fact. All of the, you know, and I kind of went off on this on the last video about the whole situation of adding technology to our standards, and then you don't supply every student with technology. Don't put in my standards and as part of my teacher evaluations that I'm supposed to have a technology piece when I don't have technology for these children to actually use. And then, you know, don't give me the, it's turning into a rant, is it? Okay, stop, it's turning into a rant, I'll stop. But all of that. So I think if they had asked us from the beginning, we wouldn't be here now. So I don't see the things that they're saying that we're gonna have to do be a realistic goal. It's not a realistic
I don't
goal.
think they're realistic. I mean, can we do it? I'm sure there's possibly a way to do it.
Of course.
I mean, we only taught 4 hours a day for the last 10 weeks. If we
Right.
need, I mean, if we needed to, we could split the
don't
kids in
say
half
that,
and they'd
but
go half
don't
in the
tell
morning,
them
the
that.
other half in the afternoon. Like,
Look, don't
no,
tell them
when we
that,
did
Elizabeth. Don't tell them that.
when we did half day kindergarten, you know, so
Right.
our half day pre-K. So like in December.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So the whole staggering people in or all that kind of thing, that's all doable. But the stuff like 1 kid per seat on a bus from the school where we just came from, the majority of the kids rode the bus. I mean, if you're gonna do
we have
1 kid
3 kids to a seat on the buses
already.
I mean, so
So, you know, and
And
you're
it's
not
not
talking about
comfortable to
kids.
sit with me 3 to a seat.
Exactly. I remember those days because I did that in high school. We had to sit 3 to a seat, and
Yeah.
I was in high school, so I know that feeling.
Right.
But a lot of it isn't realistic. And I was telling Rumi that I also watched the last board meeting.
Ah,
Blink, 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 blink.
Yes.
And they were talking about how one of the proposals that came up was for teachers to have to disinfect the room between classes.
I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
That's going to take 15 minutes off my class period.
Boom. So,
Well,
you know, part of the exactly, part of the TEA thing is that we're going to have longer days anyway. You know, you're going to extend the time anyway. So, you know, they're trying to figure out how they can work all that through by saying, oh, they'll have longer planning
You're going to give
time.
me a little more pay to expend my day to a 12-hour day?
I'm sorry, click, not, what?
My kind of girl.
Are you freaking kidding me?
No, and
I already work 12-hour days.
forget
I mean,
that.
But you get paid during the summer.
Yeah, but forget even that. I started with, okay, so I'm going to clean the tables and disinfect where the kids are going that time.
right.
In the hallway, okay, but if we're switching in the same time, you have every class outside in the hallway.
Every fifth grader in the hall.
Yeah.
Just completely.
It hasn't been, I don't, you know, it was one of those things that they threw out there, and I'm just like, think that through before we go back in August and you say this is something we have to do. I mean, I understand that you all are saying that you're looking for disinfectants that evaporate fast, but think that whole situation through, because it's not just about disinfectant that evaporates fast.
Right. They have to play that tape all the way through. Where are the kids going to go?
Right.
Who's going to be monitoring them?
Right.
I mean, can the kids do it? Why can't the kid wipe their table off?
Right.
Okay,
before
so
they get up?
I'm going to be kind of throwing in the one possibility that I see. We are all going to become self-contained classes.
Right, that face right there. Yeah.
But that's the only way that I see it. It can work, and probably switching on 2 turns. And I know I can see in your faces, and I'm going like it, but the other thing, it's logistically impossible. And it just tells you how they don't even have idea what's going on in the school.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, they would have had to have been an educator. Oops, I said that out loud.
What? Oh my God.
I'm not getting that part. I'm not.
Right. That's a whole video all by itself, because I can definitely go on a tirade about that. As much as I can definitely go on one. No. So I do feel like things are going to be different. I don't feel like we're going to just walk back in August and everything's going to be the same. I think it's going to be 100% different. So now let me switch to another gear. How much time do we have? I'm going to switch another gear.
5 minutes.
Okay, so with your counseling background, we have all been overly traumatized. So we're coming back, all of us, adults, children as well, with whatever trauma we already have, plus our timeout trauma on top of it, and what's going on in society on top of that. What do you think, or what's your plan for dealing with this trauma? Because we're gonna have to look at it from a psychological point of view, and we're gonna have to give some people some grace, and some children.
Right. Well, yeah, everybody's gonna need that grace. And another thing, I was listening to something the other day, and it's actually going through the grief process, because it's not going to be the same. So we have to grieve what we already knew, you know. So I feel like grace has to be given, and that's going to be, and for me as a teacher in a classroom, that's going to be hard, because I have high expectations.
Exactly.
You know, and then I have a science background, so and it's going to sound really bad when I say it, but I don't agree with all the stuff that's going on. I mean, because it's the nature of a virus. This is the nature of a virus. So, and so I have different opinions about what the media is saying about a lot of this stuff. So, so grace is going to be a big, huge piece of it. And then, allowing the process to happen.
Yeah.
Because if you don't go through the grief process, and it's not like a circle, but it's, it's
right,
like
right.
Some days you're going to be angry, some days you're going to be sad, some days, and then the next day you're going to be angry again because, so, I just feel like going through that process and understanding that things are not going to be the same, is going to be a big part of it. And just understanding that has to happen.
Right.
So, and then lots and lots of grace, lots and lots of grace on the kid, lots of grace on yourself.
On yourself.
Right. On the kid's parents, because they're, I know from, a lot of our parents are not as educated as they would like to be, and so they're going through a process as well. So the kid is not only dealing with their own process, but they're dealing with their parents' process and their kids' process. And then I'm going to be thrown in the mix, or we're going to be thrown into the mix, and then their friends are going to be thrown into the mix. So it's just going to be a whole hodgepodge of different experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
All in one room.
It's true that I think the key word here is going to be grace. We're definitely going to have a lot of grace. And I read an article today from USA Today. They did a poll, and they found that 1 in 5 teachers say, if school opens back in the fall, they're not coming back, just out of sheer fear. And so with that said, the three of us, we show up. That's going to be an increased burden upon us for those teachers that don't. I'm not taking anything away from them, because I am in the high risk category. Ruby's in the high risk category. So, we both have to walk in the door with a little bit of, I'm going to walk in the door with a little bit of angst. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm not. So I'm going to have a little bit of angst, but I understand those 1 in 5 teachers that will make that choice, because we know of some personally who simply retired and said, I'm not going to even try to deal with it. I'm just going to retire and call it a day. Because I feel like if I didn't have these 4 more years, Ruby, I would have done the same.
See what I mean? Every single opportunity she has. And that's the thing. And she knows that.
So grace is going to be, I think, should be every school district's key mantra this year.
That should be our mantra for the whole district.
For the whole country. Let's have grace all over the whole country. Because all of us are dealing with the same thing, the same emotion.
I will go straight forward to the top of the top, okay? Because I know we have to have the grace. I agree with that. We actually talked about how it's not going to be and how we're all in the same thing. And when we say all, I mean the world. Because my family, half of my family and friends are on the other side in Europe, and then another half is in Mexico. So it's going on around, but if it doesn't come from the top, and this time I'm going on the governmental level, because by law, we have to have a standardized testing. And I was thinking, if this is the way that we're going to teach next year, how is that going? How are we and the kids will be accountable for standardized testing? But nobody's talking about that.
Right. I don't think they even want to think about that.
I agree.
That's going to take some strategizing, and that's going to take some planning, and that's going to take some stuff. And it's a funny thing that you said that, because a friend of mine in another city who teaches cosmetology, and I know that doesn't, it's not public education, but it's teaching.
It's education,
Right. She had to give the state test via Zoom.
Yeah.
And she,
Oh, wow.
she was nervous about it because she was, tweeting to us, telling us, I'm so nervous because I'm supposed to monitor a test and it's via Zoom. So
Right.
literally, and she posted it, because she felt like I need to have somebody to be able to see it to make sure. She posted it, and the people were actually doing a test via Zoom. And I thought,
Wow.
imagine,
Right.
how all secure our testing situations are supposed to be, and imagine us having to do it
on Zoom.
via, right.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Well, now that we're talking about this with our district in particular, I'm wondering if this summer school is kind of a test run.
Precursor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now that we're, playing this out and thinking about it, that crossed my mind. How, is this a precursor for what the fall might look like?
And since you were doing summer school, we're gonna have to bring you back in the fall so you can tell us how
Oh yeah.
how that actually played out. Because I've been trying to just picture it even in my head.
Mhm.
You're running 3 different kind of camps.
Right.
And how that's, some people are going to have live teachers, some people are not. How is this all going to look? Because like you said, pretty much, I believe a lot of that stuff that you all have to do this summer, we're going to be having to do it.
This is the test run. Straightforward. This is the test run to see how it's going to work. And in the meantime, they're going to figure out how they can manage the amount of kids and how many kids can be. Because the district that I'm going next year, well, I'm going back, they have been considering a secondary level completely online. And then the primary is stretched through every single school in the district. Because you cannot have more than 6 kids in the classrooms.
Yeah.
Plus, look at this one where we are now. Every single classroom, well, that district has walls and doors, but every classroom will have a open outside door or windows, so they don't have to use the HVAC.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it's a test run, and everybody's going to see what's going on and how it's going on. But it is.
Well, and then another thing you have to think about is though there's going to be some parents that don't want their kids to go back to school.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So then how am I going to be able to teach them? Will I just have a free for all Zoom all day long and then they're just going to come join it when it's their time, or so now that I'm thinking it through, that's my.
Because we had this conversation in our last session, we were talking about that, because I was saying they might have to have, like, you're techie, she's techie. You might be the dedicated teachers for the kids that choose to stay at home and learn remotely. And since I'm not as techie, I'm just giving, hypothetically, I'm techie, okay, whatever. I would be the person that would be in the brick and mortar
classroom.
And I can see that could be, that could be an alternative, or like you said, just have something up and running, and when it's their time to be in your room, they come into your Zoom. So there's a lot out there for us to, we don't have a whole lot of time to.
Yeah, we only got,
we don't.
However, we took off and ran 9 weeks ago.
True. Now, I give us all credit. I pat everybody on the back because everybody stepped up, even me, sitting at this dining room table making a video. So, we all stepped up. And it's not impossible. It's totally not impossible, but it's definitely going to be different. And we're definitely going to have to wrap our heads around that it's not going to be the same, like you said from the beginning. I always say this. I'll never forget one of my professors in college. One of her main points that she always made, she said, if you remember nothing else I say for the rest of your college career, the word in education is flexibility. You have to be flexible. So if nothing else, if you don't remember anything else I ever say, remember the word flexibility. And I have had that in my head my whole career.
My very first education class, that's what my teacher said too. My professor said, what you always have to keep in mind with education is flexibility.
Yes.
You
And it's true.
always, always, always
And
have to
it's
be
true.
flexible.
And this little timeout we're in right now is showing us how flexible that we really are.
I know. And on top of everything, I was telling Melinda the last time, there's no other profession that adapted in 2 weeks.
Right.
Figured it out and adapted it in 2 weeks.
And it's true.
No other profession did it the same way that we did.
Mm.
It
Maybe
was
we didn't
2
prepare
weeks
for it.
for,
That's true. You should give us all a medal just for that,
yeah.
or
And it's
a
not
few
even
more
because
dollars.
our first week was spring break, and then 1 week prepare and go ahead, and
Right.
we figured it out. So
Yeah.
that was okay. Before we go, last one. What are your plans for the summertime? We know Melinda is going to work though, but other than that,
Well, I'm only working till 11, so that's cool.
good.
So my significant other, Tim, he watches my granddaughter. So I will be spending some time with her
Mhm.
and going and taking her places. Well, as many places as I can take her.
Right.
And I'm going to be studying for my LPC exam so I can get my license.
Yay.
And what else? There was something else. Oh, my Mary Kay business.
Oh yeah, she's
Stepping it
the top dog in that.
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Whatever, she's good. And anybody that's looking, you need something, check her out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look her up. She's got what
I
you
don't
need.
look like I have a 27-year-old child.
And that's right. That is right.
True.
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming to talk to us today, and we're definitely going to have you back after this summer school
Oh yeah.
fiasco is over. And yes, I called it a fiasco. And after it's over, we're going to have you back so you can kind of prepare us for what we are going to walk into in August, because I believe, like you said, this is just the rehearsal. And you didn't ask me what I'm doing for the summer, but I'm telling you, the picture that her granddaughter posted, that she posted of her granddaughter laid out in a recliner with the shades on upside down. I love that picture. And I'm going to be doing that, and I'm going to add some adult beverages. You have to love that.
So cute. Look at her.
Probably that, but I'm not going to have a phone. I'm going to have an adult beverage with a straw.
That was a calculator. She was, I'm helping mama work. I'm helping mama work.
I love it. That's going to be my position starting tomorrow at 4:00.
There we go.
That's going to be my position. So we thank you for tuning in.
No problem.
And as always, we say, if you have anybody or any comments or any topics that you would like for us to discuss, hit us up in the comments. And I just point, I don't know where the comments are. Hit us up in the comments or send us an email. Either way, it will work. But okay, she said now, so wherever. Look for us to have Melinda back so she can tell us what we can expect in the fall. And until then, we say, have a good evening.
And stay safe.
Or morning or afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Or whatever it is. Bye.
Bye.